Hear the holy roar of God resound.
Hear the holy roar of God resound.
Watch the waters part before us now.
Watch the waters part before us now.
Come and see what He has done for us. Tell the world of His great love. Our God is a God who saves. Our God is a God who saves. Let God arise. Let God arise. Our God reigns now and forever. He reigns now and forever. Arise. Let God arise. Our God reigns now and forever. He reigns now and forever. His enemies will run for sure.
His enemies will run for sure.
The church will stand, she will endure.
The church will stand, she will endure.
He holds the keys of life, our Lord. Death has no sting, no final word. Our God is a God who saves. Our God is a God who saves. Let God arise. Let God arise. Our God reigns now and forever. He reigns now and forever. be to our God forever and ever.
You asking me? I'm good. I'm doing all right.
Excuse me, sir. Do you know the new couple, the Hendersons? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. Not that I can think of.
All right.
All right. Good morning. Wow, everybody's just sitting, and I don't have to say, hey, let's get started. That's pretty awesome. I wasn't paying attention. All right, well, I'm glad you're here today. Today, I couldn't come up with any kind of snappy title because it's just a lot of narrative. And sometimes in these narratives that we're looking at, which is Genesis is all narrative, it's just it's a big story. So trying to draw things out, sometimes it's hard, especially what we're going to look at today. Some of the stuff that we look at today is going to be kind of difficult in some ways to draw out from it things that can be applicable to our lives, but we're going to do our best. This is going to kind of, in a sense, this kind of is the end of Jacob as the focus of Genesis. After this, it's going to look at Joseph's life, and Joseph's going to be the one that we focus on for the rest of our studies. But here we're going to finish off Jacob's story. Now, last week we looked at how when Jacob returned home, he wanted to return home, but Laban said, no, you can't go yet. So he was kind of like a slave to Laban. Laban took advantage of him. He knew that because of Jacob, God had blessed him, and so he didn't want him to leave. And so Jacob engineers a way to accumulate wealth and take Laban's sheep and things from him legally, and but he does so. He tries to come up with a way to do it, but in the end, we discover that it's God that is the one who produces his wealth, not Jacob himself. And so then, after Laban is kind of getting tired of losing everything to Jacob, he's getting frustrated, and Jacob decides to gather his family and flee from Laban. And so Laban catches up with him, and they have a confrontation over the stolen gods, nothing else, because God said, don't say anything good or bad to him. Leave him alone. And so we end up with them parting in peace. Though Laban's upset and Jacob's afraid, they leave each other in peace. And then after all of the stuff behind him that he's afraid of happening is over and nothing happened, we end up we end up where we are today. Esau is ahead of him, 400 men coming towards him, and so he spends time in prayer and preparing to meet Esau, and he's afraid of what's to come. So Genesis chapter 33 is where we're going to start this morning. Then Jacob lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two servants, and he put the servant women and their children first, and Leah and her children after them, and Rachel and Joseph after them. But he himself passed ahead of them and bowed to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, "Who are these with you?" And he said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the servant woman came near with their children, and they bowed down. Leah likewise came near with her children, and they bowed down. And afterwards Joseph came near with Rachel, and they bowed down. And he said, "What do you mean by all these camps which I have met?" And he said, "To find favor in the sight of my Lord." But Esau said, "I have plenty, my brother. Let what you have be your own." There we go. Then Jacob said, "No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, take my present from my hand, for I see your face as one sees the face of God. You have received me favorably. Please take my blessings which have been brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, because I have everything." Thus he urged him, and he took it. And Esau said, "Let us take our journey and go, and I will go before you." And Jacob's, it is not listening to me this morning. It is on. Then Esau said, "Please let me leave with you some of the people who are with me." And he said, Why do this? Let me find favor in your sight, in the sight of my Lord." So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built for himself a house and made booths for his livestock, and therefore the place is named Succoth. Oh, there we go. Nope, stay. There we go. All right. So we didn't exactly talk about this. This was in last week's, but what did Jacob send ahead of him to Esau, and why did he send it? Do y'all remember? What did he send ahead of himself last week? He sent a lot of livestock. He sent sheep and goats and camels and donkeys. He sent a whole bunch of his livestock, and he sent them as gifts. And so that's what we see him talking about here earlier, where he said, where Jacob's trying to give him these things, and Esau's saying no. And why is he doing that? To try to appease his brother, right? And Jacob knows that he has cheated his brother out of some things, but they're still his. It's like they're still mine, but he's cheated them, and so he wants to make peace with his brother. He's afraid, and so he has a strategy to make sure that if anything goes wrong, if his brother's still angry with him, he has a strategy in how he orders his camp. What is that strategy? Or what does he do? How does he order his camp to protect them? He puts them in different groups. What? He gives himself a buffer, right? So who's first? The servant women and their children. So that's his 2 servant women, and they have 6 children. And then or they don't have 6 children, they have 4 children. And then Leah and her children, and that's her and 7 children, I think, because Dinah also. And so her 6 sons and her daughter, and then Rachel and Joseph, and then himself. And he sets that order really kind of before in the previous chapter. And the idea behind that in Genesis chapter 32, verse 7 through 8 says, Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, so he divided the people who were with him, the flocks and the herds and the camels, into 2 camps. And he said, if Esau comes in one camp and strikes the other, then the camp that remains can escape. So in a sense, he's trying to save his favorite. The ones that go first are the ones that he's more okay with losing, right? And that says a lot about Jacob and his relationship with him. But this isn't a good situation. As I've said every time, like, and we can say anything about how all of this goes down, but Jacob holds dear most Rachel and Joseph, and so he keeps those closest to him. But and anyway, I'm just gonna follow along with my notes instead of just ad-libbing like I sometimes do. So last week we looked at how Jacob stayed back behind the Jabbok, and some have said that was again to protect himself. He sent everybody else ahead, even Rachel and Joseph, and so he kept behind himself. But I wonder if, and the text doesn't exactly tell us reasons for why he did it, but I really think that it's probably more to do with Jacob wants to spend some time in prayer. He's been praying that whole series. Like, as he's leaving Laban, we see a different kind of man in Jacob, don't we? We see a man who's seeking God, who attributes all the blessings in his life to God, and he knows that the only salvation he has can come from God. And so I think that's really why he stays behind. And so here again, we see that he's ordered his family in the order of importance to him. But then what does he do when he finally meets his brother? Does he stay behind and leave that buffer between him and his brother? No, he goes ahead. So whether or not that was his intention, was to keep a buffer between himself or not, or not, by the time he's done wrestling with God, he knows he needs to go face Esau himself. And so that's what he does. Now, whenever he left Laban, he was afraid, right? And Laban chased him down, and that could have been a big confrontation, right? And what ends up happening? Pretty much nothing. All that Jacob worried about came to nothing, right? And so again, he's worried about facing his brother, and what comes about? Nothing. A hug, kisses, joyful tears. I was thinking about this. I was reminded, especially because when we did Revelation, I was in Scott's class, and he pointed out that in Revelation you see multiple times where it looks like you're getting ready for a big battle, and nothing happens. Why? Because God's already won. The world is approaching, ready for a battle, and there's really no battle to win or fight because God's already won. And in a sense, this is the same kind of thing. Jacob is ready for something bad to happen, and there's peace in the end. And when you rely on God, and no matter what difficulties you face, no matter what you worry about, you can make it through it when you're with God, when you trust in Him. Any comments on what I've just said or thoughts? Okay. So now, again, Jacob stole Esau's inheritance. He stole his blessings. And so in verse 11 of chapter 33, he says, "Please take the blessings which has been brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have everything." Thus he urged him, and he took it. So in the end, Jacob sees that all that he has is from God, and I think part of this "I have everything" is really pointing back to not just that he has an abundance, but that he took the blessing and he took the inheritance from Esau. And so, please take these gifts. I know I've robbed you of these things, and they are now legally and rightfully mine, but please take these gifts from me. And so, in a sense, though it's not really taking the place of those things, and he can't really make amends in that sense, he is giving him a gift. And Esau says, "I don't need it," but he takes it because his brother urges him to. And it's good I think it's really good that Jacob recognizes his previous choices that were hurtful to his brother, and that he at least tries to do something about it. And then they go back on their way, and Jacob tells Esau, "Go ahead, I'll just stay behind, or I'll go slower." And he ends up just staying where he is and makes a home for himself near Shechem. And he buys an area and sets up a place for him to live. And he calls that place El Elohe Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. So through all of this, the Jacob that we see now is not the Jacob that we see at the beginning of his story. Jacob has been tricking and stealing and deceiving and trying to manipulate the situation to benefit himself. And now we see someone who is trusting in God, someone who is still trying to fix the situation to benefit himself, but also he sees himself for who he is. He sees what he's done, and he's trying to rectify that and live faithful to God. And, like we said before, I think I said this last week, we all have to go through life in different ways. Everybody's going to have there's one way, but every one of us is going to have different experiences along the way, right? Every one of us starts off with different families. We start off with different things. We end up with different decisions, but there's still one way, which is to follow God and to make those decisions that we make in His way. And so it's taken Jacob a long time to get to where he is at this point. But now we see someone who is following God. Any comments on chapter 33? I'm going to move ahead. Next we're going to talk about Dinah's tragedy. I don't know what else to call it, and in a lot of ways, I really don't know what to do with this. It's really a difficult passage. I don't know, and I probably spent a way more time in this passage trying to comprehend how to teach this than I probably should have. But anyway, Genesis 34, 1 through 3. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her and took her and lay with her and violated her. And he was deeply attracted to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the young woman and spoke to the heart of the young woman. So, one study Bible that I looked at through various things pointed out that it would be unusual for in the ancient Near East for a young girl or woman to leave the camp without a chaperone, especially when going into a city in a new land. Dinah's act represents probably a youthful indiscretion, a bad choice that she made as a young lady, as it placed her in the company of women not bound by the covenant that Jacob and his family were. Basically, people who didn't know or follow God, and she was going to spend time with them. Now, the text doesn't place any blame on Dinah for what happens. It just talks about how she went out to be with the daughters of the land. And we see in earlier passages, we see when talking about the daughters of the land or the Canaanites, we see the attitude of Abraham and his family. This is what they say. Abraham tells his servant, "You shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites." And in Genesis chapter 27:46, Rebekah says, "I am tired of living with the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like these, from the daughters of the land, what good will my life be?" In Genesis 28, again, Rebekah is saying to Jacob, "I don't want you to take a wife from the daughters of Canaan." And again in 8, Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan were displeasing in the sight of his father Isaac. And so we see in all of these passages that there's a problem here. There's either maybe the behavior of the women, the attitudes of the women, or something is extremely displeasing about it. And so these are not women that she should probably be spending time with, but perhaps in a camp full of a bunch of rambunctious, annoying brothers, maybe she just wanted to go hang out with somebody else. Maybe there wasn't really any others. I don't know. But it was obviously a bad decision that she made at this time. Now, what happens in verse 2 when Shechem lies with her, it does not read like it's consensual, like this is agreed upon. It seems like it's forced, and yet afterwards it seems like Shechem is kind and tender towards her, and that she listens to him. I don't know how to deal with what we read in. I think it's verse 3, how it says he spoke to the heart of the young woman. And so it sounds like she's maybe emotionally attached to him now at the end of that. I don't know. Again, I don't know what to make of this. And so Shechem asks his father, he says, I want her for a wife. He asks his father to help him get Dinah for a wife. So in Genesis chapter 34, verse 5 through 12, we see kind of how this happens. Jacob heard that he defiled Dinah, his daughter, but his sons were with the livestock in the field, so Jacob kept silent until they came in. Then Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak to him, and the sons of Jacob came in from the field, and they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very angry because of what had been done. What had been done, because they were very angry because he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter. For such a thing ought not to be done. But Hamor spoke to them, saying, "The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife, and intermarry with us, and give us your daughters. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters for yourself. Thus you shall live with us, and the land shall be open before you. Live and trade in it, and take possession of property in it." And Shechem also said to her father and to her brothers, "If I find favor in your sight, then I will give whatever you say to me. Ask me ever so much bridal payment and gift, and I will give according as you say to me. But give me the girl as a wife." So now Jacob's sons respond with a plan, and they act that in such a way that this plan is acceptable to them. But the reality is what's going to happen after this is they tell them, "Hey, well, you have to be circumcised to have her for a wife." And we've already read that they're angry, and their plan isn't to just say, "Oh, well, we'll go along with this idea. Yeah, it's no big deal. It happens all the time. That's okay. Well, no big deal." But they say, "No, this should not have been done." They're angry and upset. And so they have a plan. They say, "Okay, well, if you all get circumcised, if your whole city gets circumcised, this will be fine. You can have her." But what their plan is, well, in a sense, I wonder if their plan is really certain, or if they all agree on the plan. I think it could be that their plan is to just go in and plunder everything. They're going to take everything. They're going to take Dinah and leave. But two brothers have a different idea, perhaps. So anyway, the whole city agrees to this. The Hamor and Shechem say, "Hey, if we marry these guys, or if we do all this, we can intermarry with their families and take all of their possessions." Now, how rich must Jacob be for a whole city of people to want to take his stuff? I just think, how much has God blessed him? He has accumulated a lot of wealth, and God has blessed him so much that a whole city of people want what he has. And I think that's interesting. And so they're willing to be circumcised. Well, verse 25 was, "Now it happened on the third day when they were in pain. The two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came upon the unsuspecting city and killed every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the edge of the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went away. And Jacob's son came out upon the slain and plundered the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds and their donkeys and that which was in the city, that which was in the field. And they captured and plundered all the wealth and all the little ones and their wives and all that was in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me by making me odious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and my men being few in number, and they are gathering together against me to strike me, and I will be destroyed, and I and my household." But they said, "Should he treat our sister as a harlot?" So again, from the beginning of this, Dinah's indiscretion, her bad choice, has put them here, but it also seems like it's really hard to understand what's going on here. It could be that Jacob is not behaving as a father as he should have. He's not protected her as he should have. This should have been prevented, so again, it's hard to see what's going on here. In the whole dialogue in this, the only point at which Jacob really speaks up is here at the end, is "You have made me odious to the people around us." And so perhaps in this, Jacob has not been leading his family as he should. And in a sense, by the end of this, it may be that he's even kind of lost a little bit of respect from his sons, because he doesn't seem to have done anything to protect her, to rescue her. And so, again, this is just an amazing tragedy in the middle of the life of those who follow God. So again, Jacob's sons, they don't have any intention of letting any of this happen that they agreed upon. It was really just a ruse, a trick to get to rescue Dinah. And in the process, they take everything. They even take, it sounds like they take the children to be servants, and they take the women from the city, perhaps to be servants or maybe even to be wives, who knows. And so, in a sense, Simeon and Levi specifically are the ones that are very, I wonder if it's their actions specifically, that Simeon and Levi, that you two have made me odious to the people. So perhaps the intent for the whole family wasn't necessarily to kill everybody, but maybe just to steal everything. I don't know. But then again, that would have ended up being probably worse, because then you'd have the men of the city who would want to attack them, and there would have been less fear that comes later. So all of this results in, later on in life in, some.
I was going to say, verse 13, in the ESV, it says, the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and his father deceitfully.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it looked like on the surface that they're like, okay, you guys become Jewish, like we're Jewish, circumcision, join us. But they had ulterior motives.
Right.
In the very beginning.
Right.
But it didn't look that way. And then same for Shechem and Hamor, that they had ulterior motives.
Right.
We want their stuff. And so deceitfulness is it's the same problem that they've been dealing
Yeah.
with, Jacob has been dealing with all of his life.
Yeah.
And so when a nut does fall very far from
Yeah.
the
The,
tree.
yeah.
And
Did you-
so, but I mean, deceitfulness doesn't help
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
Just because of bad things happen, and it's a bad thing because they took their sister. She was gone.
Right. So that was wrong, and in a sense, like, she was almost held captive.
Yes.
Right. So they hadn't returned her to her family. They were like, okay, we have her, and we'll give you anything you want for her. And the whole process, everyone is being deceitful in a sense. So, and so Jacob's sons are deceitful in their plan. Hamor and Shechem are deceitful, and their desire is not really righteous. And so nothing that's happening here is good. No one's righteous in this situation, really. Now, was it right for them to want to rescue their sister? Absolutely. Was this the right way to go about doing that? I can't say. And so, again, it's a tremendous tragedy. People die for what is going to happen here. But also, again, isn't there a lot of an image of what's going to happen in the near future? Okay, wait. Okay, David.
The real key here is some cultural things going on. Simeon and Levi were her full brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Brothers took care of their sisters. It was an honor and shame thing.
Yeah.
They're preserving the honor of the family, plus the purity of the lineage of the family here. They
Yeah.
don't want her intermarrying with the Gentiles.
Right. Right.
That becomes a theme throughout the Old Testament for Israel.
Right. Right. So this is a big cultural thing, and an important thing in the family. They should all have desired to honor their sister, and Jacob should have desired to rescue her and make that important.
I just want to say, regardless, their actions were deplorable.
Yeah.
And there's nothing good you can find in it at all, the way they did it.
Yeah. Yeah. So to repeat what Larry said is that in all that happened, everything was deplorable. None of these actions are exactly justifiable. Okay.
Regardless of what Dinah did, and maybe she did make some bad decisions, she was still a victim of rape.
Yeah, she was a victim. She was a victim of rape, and that wasn't right. And all of this, I mean, it doesn't matter. A bad decision doesn't mean that another bad decision. everything in the situation is wrong. Sean.
I was just gonna say two things. One, I've seen enough forensic shows to know that when someone rapes your sister, you want to kill her. That's what I mean. You want to kill them. That's the natural response. So I think they were intending to kill her. That killed them. Now the second thing is it follows the pattern that you see all throughout the Bible. They chose to do it apart from God. Now when you take God out of the equation and you murder somebody, that's murder. Like if you look at all the examples in the Old Testament where people were justified in killing, it was because God had foresight and gave them a direct command. He did not tell them to do this. They
Right.
came upon themselves and said, I think this is best. I'm going to do this. So apart from God, they took a lot of people's lives. So I look at that as just plain murder.
Right. Were you going to say something, Randy?
I think he said it, they realized, they forgot that God is in control.
Right. And so even though, like, in a sense, a lot of what's happening here from fleeing from Laban all the way down, all of these conflicts is kind of a mirror of the future of the Exodus. Even going in and destroying all these people is kind of like that. It's not exactly, but it's a slight image of what's going to happen in the future for their family. But here, they have not been given a command by God to kill these people. That this is righteous. And the next question I was going to ask is, what did they forget to do? Ask God. We saw Jacob asking God. We saw Jacob, he's afraid of what's going to happen. He asks God. He's afraid of conflict with Esau. What does he do? He asks God. He prepares, and that prepares him for the situation, which ends up in peace because he spent time praying to God. And now he's gotten relaxed and enjoyed his new home. And now here we are in a situation where they need to seek God, and we do not see them seeking God. Now we can all understand the way Simeon and Levi especially act. It seems right? Even though it's not, it seems like at least a natural response. I want to get rid of these guys. They have dishonored my sister in an extremely disrespectful and ungodly way, and these people do not deserve to live. We all understand that. And also, one of the things that's kind of interesting, again, how the story kind of repeats itself, right? So Abraham enters into the land as a stranger. What happens? Well, he's afraid that the people are going to take his wife, and they do, and they think they'll kill him. Well, here, and then again, Isaac does the same thing. They enter in the land. Oh, she's my sister, so that nothing happens, because Abraham's response was, maybe these people don't fear God. Well, here we see this happen, and it comes to fruition where they actually do something to Dinah. And so in all of those situations, though, they lied before. In a sense, it kind of makes sense that they did, because the people that are living there in this land, if they were unrighteous before, maybe perhaps they're even worse than they were before. Does this make sense? So you have the same kind of story. They're afraid for their women in this land as strangers. They're afraid for the women in this land, and here Jacob comes in, and perhaps he's not afraid enough of the people of this land. He's not protected his daughter like Abraham and Isaac protected their wives. And so now at the end of this, Jacob is concerned because of you have brought trouble on me, making me odious in the sight of the inhabitants. But then what we see later, right after this, is that the people are afraid of him. They're afraid of God. They now have a fear of God with respect to Jacob. So they're not going to touch Jacob. So in a sense, even though all of this is wrong, everything that goes on here is wrong. I made a bad decision. It's still not our fault. Shechem was evil. And all of this, what is the end result that God uses from this? The people here. Now fear the Lord with respect to Jacob. And they're not going to touch him. So what is Jacob now? He's safe and is at peace in this land. He's able to roam and nobody's going to touch him. Why? Because they're afraid. So despite all of the bad stuff, God uses all of the bad stuff, even in our own lives, every day, to produce something. You know, when we think of in many places where there are wars and things going on that are terrifying to us, God often uses those wars and tragedy to bring about good fruit for his kingdom. All right, so moving on. Now, Jacob is then, we'll go ahead and read. Genesis chapter 35. Then God said to Jacob, "Arise and go to Bethel and live there and make an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." So Jacob said to his household and all who are with him, "Put away the foreign gods which were among you. Cleanse yourselves and change your garments, and let us arise and go to Bethel. And I will make an altar there to God, who answered me in the day of my distress and has been with me everywhere I have gone." So they gave to Jacob all the foreign gods which they had and the rings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was near Shechem. And then they journeyed on, and there was terror from God upon the cities which were around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. So Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan, and all the people who were with him. But he built an altar there and called the place El Bethel, because God had revealed himself to him when he fled from his brother. Then Deborah, the nurse of Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried below Bethel under the oak, and it was named Elon Bakuth. So Jacob prepares to return to Bethel as God commands him. So Jacob instructs his family to purify himself. This, like many other events in Genesis that point maybe to kind of a pattern that we'll see in Exodus. As the Israelites, when they approach Mount Sinai, they are required to purify themselves. When they're going to come into the promised land, they have to do the same thing again. And this time, there's no explanation for it. Whereas in Exodus, we see, and further on in the future, and as their story goes, there's an explanation for why or what this is about. Here, Jacob just says, "Do these things so that we can go and meet with God." And then they get rid of all their gods and earrings, which are probably associated with those gods, and they bury them. And we're not given any reasons for why specifically they buried them. It doesn't really matter, but just that they're getting rid of these things. They're putting the old ways that they may have followed before. Perhaps some of the stuff was things that they took from Shechem. Some of it was probably the gods that Rachel stole from her father. And the end of this passage is just really kind of strange to me. I mean, like we see Deborah, whose name we've never heard before. Deborah is mentioned, the nurse of Rebekah, that she died. Okay, why? Why is this significant? Nobody really knows. There's all sorts of reasons why this could be mentioned, but we don't know why. But it's just interesting. But Rebekah's death is never mentioned in here, and it's kind of interesting that Rebekah, Jacob's mother, is not mentioned. All right, moving on. Then God appeared to Jacob again, and he came to Padan Aram. When he came from Padan Aram, he blessed him, and God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, and you shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name." Thus he called his name Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and an assembly of nations shall come from you. Kings shall come forth from your loins. In the land which I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I will give to you, and I will give the land to your seed after you." And God went up from him in the place where he had spoken to him. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place that he spoke with him, and a pillar of stone, and he poured out a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. and Jacob named the place where God had spoken to him Bethel. So Jacob's journey is now complete. He left everything behind, fleeing from his brother, and met God here. He went up and he journeyed through his life and has now come back to the place where all of this stuff kind of began for him. And God blesses him here. And so this is really where the story of Jacob ends. It starts, the transformation of Jacob starts here, and it ends here. This is where we see his real story ending. It's kind of interesting. And so after this, again, what does he do after he talks with God? Just like his fathers before him, they worship God. He builds an altar, a pillar, a stone as a memorial, pours out oil on it, and drink offering on it. And moving on real quickly, so I have no time. I think just some interesting stuff to think about. They journeyed from Bethel, and there was still some distance to go to Ephrath, and Rachel gave birth, and she suffered severely in her labor. Now it happened that when she was in severe labor, the midwife said to her, "Do not fear, for now you have another son." And now it happened as her soul was departing, for she died, that she named him Benoni, but his father named him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Jacob set up a pillar over her grave, and this is the pillar at Rachel's grave to this day. Israel journeyed on and pitched his tent beyond the Tower of Eder. All right, and so I'll have to finish this part real quick, but Rachel dies in complications of birth of her second son. She names him because of her sorrow, but again, his permanent name that Jacob gives him is Benjamin, which is the son of my right hand. This son is both an answer to her prayer for when she had Joseph, because when she had Joseph, she named him, I want another son. Like, this is a blessing, but I want another. I want more. And so this is both a blessing and the sorrow for Jacob and for her, that she won't get to see her son grow. And then Rachel is buried here, and I think this is one of the most interesting things. Rachel's story, though it ends here, in a sense, is not over. In Genesis chapter 49, verses 30 through 31, it says, in the cave of the field of Machpelah, Jacob saying, this is where I want to be buried, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan. Abraham bought along with the field from Ephron the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. They buried Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and I buried Leah. And so he wants to be buried there. What are these people that are going to be buried in the cave at Machpelah, what do they have in common? They're all the forefathers of Jesus, or foremothers of Jesus, right? They are Jesus's, they're his ancestors, right? But Rachel's not. Rachel's story doesn't end. I want to finish here because I think this is important. Matthew chapter 2, verse 17. Herod's going to kill all the children in Bethlehem because of Jesus. So then when and this is what we read in Matthew. Then what had happened, what had been spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled, saying, a voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children. She was refusing to be comforted because they were no more. Now, Rachel is not the mother of the families of people in Bethlehem, but she's buried there. And I think it's still beautiful that even though she's not an ancestor of Jesus, her story is still connected to Jesus. That her story is part of the prophecy of Jesus' life. So, and I bring this out because I want to say that just because our names aren't written in the book that we read, they're still written in God's book. And they're still part of how he tells Jesus' story. Just because we're not his ancestors or related to him in some specific way doesn't mean that we're not part of that story. Now, I have a whole lot more. I've been actually getting ahead. So anyway, next week, Genesis chapter 37 through 39. A favorite son flaunts designer coat. Brothers snap and jealous siblings plot revenge after dad gifts flashy wardrobe. I can't say all that. 2 brothers dead, 1 widow desperate. A scandal that rocks the family when the family duty goes horribly wrong. From the pit to the prison, one man's unbelievable losing streak, yet somehow he still keeps getting promoted. What's his secret? All right. I'll see you next week.